In this video, we're going to take a look at emotes that allow us to make monsters move. The first emote we're going to look at is the motion emote. This is what enables you to play animations on NPCs and monsters, which can add a little flavor to your interactions. So we can go ahead and give this Drudge Skulker a motion, twitch 1, and you see when the Drudge attacks us, he does his taunt and stops the dance. This is a spreadsheet that I'm going to link in the description, which includes, among other things, all the animations you can play with the motion emote. You would just put motion : wave, or you can do motion : 135. Now it's important to note that many of these on this list won't work as motion emotes. It's mainly just the player usable emotes, like shake fist, beckon, be seeing you, blow kiss, etc. NPCs with human style motion tables like shadows and Nekshay and some other ones can use these player emotes, like miming eating and laughing and so on. Most other monsters, the options are more limited. You can see some of those monster options, although I'm not certain that it's exhaustive, in AC Viewer. So you can see it's Twitch 1, he does his little pawing the ground. You do Twitch 2, he does his little bite from side to side. You can do Fallen and Dead. I don't think Armadillo's cast spells, nope. So yeah, that is the motion emote in a nutshell. It's a great way to make NPCs feel a bit more like people, a good way to make monsters do some sort of emote before they do a special attack. If they've got a special attack that they're going to do, it's important not to overdo it, however, because they don't always display if you try to do too many at once. So if you try chaining too many motion emotes on an NPC while they're talking to you, for instance, it's going to add delay to the interaction, which you generally want to avoid, so that players aren't spending an awful lot of time waiting for the NPC to finish talking and moving around. ForceMotion is, as you might imagine, an emote that allows us to force players to do a motion. It's used extensively in the Noir quest in Retail Asheron's Call. Very little else uses it, but it can be useful for adding verisimilitude when you're interacting with objects like this cauldron here that we're not actually picking up, but we want to make it look like players are interacting instead of just sort of standing there. So you can see sort of sits down and reaches into it. This is the weenie for the cauldron. As you can see, we have ForceMotion pickup 5. There's pickup 5, 10, 15, and 20, all at different heights. And then we have ForceMotion ready. You need the ForceMotion ready here with a lot of these force motions because otherwise the player will stay in that state. If we don't have the ForceMotion here, the player will basically stay bent down until they move their character themselves. So it's a little immersion breaking, doesn't look quite as clean. So you usually want this ForceMotion ready here after they've done the previous ForceMotion. So we have a couple of options if we want to make monsters move across the landscape and not just do little emotes like dancing and bowing and so on. We can look at Amelia here, who is going to show us the move to position emote. Up there she is. If you've done this quest already, you know that she moves all around the graveyard. We're not going to follow her the whole way. She does some interesting things where she interacts with dirt piles and so on. This is Amelia's emote script, and as you can see, it's awfully long, with lots of delays and motions and local signals and all sorts of stuff. What we're looking at is the move to position. This is what gets her started and what moves around the graveyard. Doesn't have to be a heartbeat that triggers it. Heartbeat is just a nice passive way to trigger it. Could do it on generation as well, since we saw that she gets generated anew by the other Amelia NPC. So if we look at the formatting of the move to position, in here we don't have, this would be the land block information. I don't know strictly whether or not that's necessary. I just usually drop it in because I'm pulling from the loc command. But you see also here's your X, Y, and Z coordinates and your rotations. Basically, move to position allows you to move to a specific position on the landscape. And to show you again how we get those coordinates, we can just do @loc. We can just copy and paste that and drop that right behind the colon. Now one thing that's important to keep in mind is that move to position won't make a monster go exactly to this position. It's pretty close most of the time. but usually they'll stop just a little bit short of it, maybe. So it may take some fiddling if you're trying to get really precise. It's also important to note the importance of these long delays here after each move to position. Basically, what happens if you don't have these delays on the next emote, it'll trigger this move to position and then immediately trigger the next emote. So the monster doesn't wait until it reaches this position before it triggers its next emote. So you have to do some rough estimation and some playing around to see how long it's going to take them to actually reach that point, and roughly give it that much of a delay. Now we have another emote option if we want to make monsters move across the landscape, and that is the move emote. You can see, if you've been to Hoshino before, you can see the spectral archers, and I believe the spectral mages. Up there he goes. We'll move a little bit when they're not attacking anybody. So here we are with the emote script for our spectral archer. As you can see under heartbeats, we have a chance to fire off this move emote. The formatting looks the same as our move to position, except that these numbers here are relative to the spawn position. So in the same way that our relative generators will spawn something, in this case it'd be like 4 units to the east and 4 units to the north in that position. This is the same with move, except the monster is going to move to that location. And it's important that these are not additive, that if it did this first move here, this 4-4, and then tried to execute this 0-8 here, it would have to move back 4 units to the west and then move 4 units to the north, so that it would be at this relative position to its spawn location. So it can get a little complicated trying to do any major movements with the move emote. I generally prefer move to position for that reason. But there are some interesting things you can do, like with this monster. Gives it sort of like the appearance of life, like it's patrolling a little bit. And you can actually make it literally patrol longer distances with move just as easily. And if it's a generic monster like this, all of them will patrol in that same way. So for that purpose, it can be useful. So if you're trying to create an encounter where you want a monster that will move, even if players are attacking it, you can remember that tolerance 1, which means it'll never attack. Alternatively, if you want a monster that will move to position or move in such a way but never attack unless players attack it first, you can use tolerance 64. And if you want a monster that sort of acts like a patrol, patrolling around an area, but say on scream does some emote saying, intruders, guards kind of thing, you can just leave it without any tolerance at all, just like a regular monster. Even if it still hasn't reached its endpoint of the motion or move, it'll still be able to see players and fire off a scream emote. Another emote we have access to is the turn emote. And in WeenieFab's emote script, you can just do turn N, turn S, and here we have that NPC, and if we use him, we will turn to the north. There's also the TurntoTarget emote, that if you ever wonder why NPCs will often rather annoyingly spin all the way around in a circle to turn towards the person they're talking to, that's another one. Here we are, talk to him, he turns all the way around. And the last emote I wanted to talk about, it's only sort of related. It's mostly because it was on the same spreadsheet that I showed you earlier, and which I'll link in the description with the motions on it. And that's PhysScript, or PhysScript. PhysScripts basically allow us to play spell effects. It's mostly spell effects, things like the protection buffs and vulns, the item buffs, banes, and so on. And I will go ahead and show you a couple. How about shield down red, and PhysScript read flame. Here we have our quest checker NPC. We're going to go ahead and use him. You'll see that he did shield down red, which is sort of a flame vulnerability. He did not do his brief flame, and there's a reason for that. If you've been playing around with weenies for a little bit, you may have noticed the physics effect table under data ID or DID. Basically, this is what enables a monster to display those spells from PhysScript with vulnerabilities and protections and item buffs and so on. Now it's important to note that not every physics effect table is the same. The human physics effect table has basically most of the things on the list that's in the spreadsheet, but it doesn't have breathe flame, to my knowledge. I wanted to touch on one last thing, since we did mention PhysScript. If you've ever wondered how you can make a monster that doesn't spawn with all the purple bubbly bits around it, like the purple portal bits, you can just remove the PhysScript entirely. Some interesting uses of that. It makes for sort of a seamless transition. If you have an NPC that players are going to interact with that decides to fight you, you can make it delete itself and appear again immediately as the monster. So if we go to our quest checker NPC, we have them do something like, say, have at you, generate, delete self. And I've already added his buddy to his generator table here. I'll put this as 1 for on top. Go back to int. Make sure we have 81 and 82, as you remember from our generator video. Oh, he already has them. Down here. 1, 1. Move any generation interval. It's already set at 0, so we're good. And here is his buddy, the other quest checker NPC, who's going to be attacking us. We can allow him to attack us by removing this player killer status rubber glue. And I do believe by giving him a target tactic. Over there. And we're going to make sure that we don't have physics effect table on this NPC, so I can demonstrate what I was trying to do. We can go ahead and talk to this quest checker NPC, the 99999. Since they have at you, and he immediately changes. If we go tackle on, he's going to attack us. So that is one way to seamlessly transition from an NPC that players talk to or interact with directly into a fight. So I hope that was a useful introduction to making monsters move, to add a little pizzazz to your NPCs, maybe make some patrolling monsters, and some other things like that. I don't know how many of you have made it this far into the series, but if you have any requests for videos going forward, I'm certainly happy to expound further on any topics. Thanks for watching.